Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef didn't start as the legendary duo we remember from classic spaghetti westerns. Long before the fame and iconic roles, they were both contract players at Universal Pictures in the 1950s, grinding away in small parts, background roles, and bit parts. It's almost hard to imagine these two soon-to-be giants of the Western genre just try to get noticed, sharing cramped studio lots and waiting for their big break. Universal was a bustling hub where actors often crossed paths without much fanfare, but Eastwood and Van Cleef's frequent encounters planted the seeds for their future collaboration. Back then, neither actor was a star that history would remember. Clint Eastwood was just starting out, working under the shadow of bigger names and learning the ropes. Lee Van Cleef, recognizable by his sharp features and intense gaze, was typecast as the bad guy, often playing henchmen or minor villains. Both actors knew the grind, those long waits, endless auditions, and the uncertainty of the next role. What's interesting is how their different career trajectories began shaping early on. Eastwood had a quiet confidence and a rugged charm that slowly started to get noticed, while Van Cleef's distinctive look made him a natural choice for antagonist roles. But beneath the surface, there was mutual respect. They understood each other's struggles in an industry that could be ruthless, especially when you weren't yet a household name. Stories from insiders and vintage interviews reveal that Eastwood and Van Cleef would often see each other a lot on set, sometimes exchanging a nod or a quick chat between scenes. This wasn't a deep friendship yet, but it was a foundation of a professional acquaintance that later blossomed into a memorable partnership. It's a reminder that even the biggest stars often begin their journey quietly, rubbing shoulders in the background, waiting for their moment. One thing that makes this period especially fascinating is how their early roles foreshadowed their later on-screen dynamic. Van Cleef's skill in playing villains and Eastwood's calm yet commanding presence created a natural tension that would explode years later in the famous spaghetti westerns. In a way, those years at Universal were like rehearsals for the clash of characters they perfected later. The patience and persistence they demonstrated during this early phase were key. Neither Eastwood nor Van Cleef skyrocketed overnight. Instead, their careers built slowly, marked by small wins and hard work. This shared experience shaped their approach to acting and undoubtedly influenced how they worked together when the time came. So, while the world remembers them as fierce rivals or unforgettable co-stars, the truth is they started as struggling actors, sharing the same uncertain path. Those early days at Universal weren't glamorous, but they laid the groundwork for something bigger. And that foundation would prove crucial when fate brought them together again for some of the most iconic films in Western history. But that wasn't the whole story. Their journey from unknowns at Universal to legends in spaghetti westerns held many surprises. And what happened next would shock fans even more. The turning point for Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef came in the mid-1960s, but it wasn't in Hollywood. It was thousands of miles away in Italy. The spaghetti western genre was exploding, and Italian filmmakers were looking to redefine the American West with a grittier, more morally complex edge. That's where Eastwood and Van Cleef's paths converged in a way nobody could have predicted. Sergio Leone, the visionary director behind the genre, saw something in both actors that Hollywood had largely overlooked. Eastwood, with his laconic style and smoldering intensity, and Van Cleef, with his cold, steely presence, were perfect for the anti-heroes and villains Leone wanted to bring to life. This new wave of westerns wasn't about clear-cut heroes and villains. It was about shades of gray, flawed men, and raw human emotion. Eastwood's breakthrough came with a fistful of dollars in 1964, the film that launched the Dollars trilogy. It was a gamble on Eastwood, then still largely unknown in America, but Leone's vision and Eastwood's charisma clicked instantly. Lee Van Cleef's involvement came a little later, but when he joined the saga in for a few dollars more, 1965, their chemistry was undeniable. Van Cleef's chilling villainy perfectly contrasted with Eastwood's quiet toughness, creating a dynamic that captivated audiences worldwide. But their collaboration wasn't just about on-screen magic. Behind the scenes, the relationship was complex. Rumors surfaced over the years about tension and rivalry, But Eastwood has now finally broken his silence, revealing a nuanced reality. While the two men had different personalities, Eastwood was famously calm and private, Van Cleef more intense and sometimes difficult. They respected each other's talent deeply. Eastwood admitted that working with Van Cleef pushed him to elevate his own performances. Van Cleef brought a raw edge that kept Eastwood on his toes, forcing him to dig deeper into his character. This mutual challenge created some of the most memorable moments in cinema history, scenes charged with unspoken tension and subtle power struggles. The spaghetti western era redefined both their careers. Before this, Eastwood was just another actor looking for a big break, and Van Cleef was typecast in minor villain roles. But these films transformed them into legends, giving them a global fan base and forever changing the western genre. What's more, their collaboration extended beyond Leone's films. They reunited in The Magnificent Seven in 1960, before the spaghetti western days, and later in The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly 1966, solidifying their on-screen legacy. However, what the public didn't see was the off-camera push and pull. Eastwood's recent comments reveal that while they share mutual respect, there were moments of friction, creative disagreements, and even jealousy. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but it was exactly that tension that fueled their iconic performances. This era also saw the rise of the anti-hero in Hollywood, a trend that Eastwood and Van Cleef helped pioneer. Their gritty, morally ambiguous characters broke from the traditional Western mold and resonated with audiences craving something more real, more complex. But there was still more to the story. Their partnership had darker sides, hidden conflicts, and personal challenges that most fans never knew. And what happened next would shock everyone who thought they knew the whole truth. While Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef's on-screen partnership seemed seamless to fans, behind the camera, things were far more complicated. The image of two legends working harmoniously wasn't always a reality. Eastwood's recent revelations pull back the curtain on the misunderstandings and tensions that shaped their relationship, and ultimately, the films that made them famous. For starters, Eastwood admitted that Van Cleef's reputation as a tough guy on set was more than just an act. Known for his intense gaze and intimidating demeanor, Van Cleef sometimes came off as difficult to work with. He was fiercely protective of his craft and had a no-nonsense approach to acting that could ruffle feathers, especially among younger actors like Eastwood, who was still finding his footing at the time. Eastwood recalled moments when Van Cleef's sharp critiques and blunt feedback felt like personal attacks. But over time, he realized that Van Cleef's tough exterior masked a deep passion for the work. He was a man who demanded excellence, not just from himself but from everyone around him. Eastwood shared. This demanding nature sometimes created friction, but also pushed Eastwood to improve, shaping his own method and discipline. Another layer to their dynamic was the clash of experience. Van Cleef had been in Hollywood for years, often cast as a villain, and was familiar with the traditional studio system. Eastwood, on the other hand, was relatively new to the scene and had come from television. Their different backgrounds meant they approached scenes and characters in contrasting ways, which led to occasional disagreements about how certain moments should be played. Moreover, the pressure of filming in foreign locations, long hours, and tight budgets added stress that sometimes magnified their conflicts. Eastwood recalled times when communication breakdowns on set led to misunderstandings, fueling rumors of personal animosity that fans and tabloids eagerly picked up on. What surprised many was Eastwood's revelation about jealousy. Despite the respect they had for each other, there were moments when professional envy bubbled beneath the surface. Van Cleef's commanding presence and experience sometimes overshadowed Eastwood during early collaborations, leading to feelings of insecurity. Conversely, as Eastwood's star rose, Van Cleef occasionally felt sidelined or underappreciated. Yet, beneath the tension, there was an unspoken bond forged by shared struggles and a mutual understanding of the hardships actors endure. Eastwood described how, over time, they learned to navigate their differences, developing a professional respect that allowed them to deliver the intense performances audiences loved. This behind-the-scenes glimpse challenges a myth of perfect camaraderie often sold by Hollywood. Instead, it paints a more realistic picture, one where great art often emerges from conflict and complexity. But their story wasn't just about clashes. There were also moments of unexpected kindness, mentorship, and camaraderie that shaped Eastwood's career in ways fans never imagined. These moments reveal a side of Van Cleef that rarely made it to the public eye. And just when you think you've heard it all, Eastwood's next revelation flips the entire narrative on its head, exposing something no one saw coming. Despite the rocky start and simmering tensions, Clint Eastwood's recent comments revealed an unexpected friendship blossom between him and Lee Van Cleef, one that played a crucial role in shaping Eastwood's legendary career. What's remarkable is how this bond grew from mutual respect and shared challenges rather than effortless chemistry. Eastwood confessed that initially, he viewed Van Cleef almost as a rival. Van Cleef was a seasoned pro, the established star of their spaghetti western collaborations, while Eastwood was a newcomer eager to prove himself. But over time, that perception shifted dramatically. One pivotal moment Eastwood shared involved a late-night conversation during the filming of one of their iconic movies. Exhausted from long hours on a dusty set, they unexpectedly opened up about their past struggles in Hollywood. Eastwood was surprised to learn about Van Cleef's hardships, how he'd battled typecasting, struggled to find roles that truly challenged him, and fought to stay relevant in an industry that often discarded aging actors. This shared understanding created a turning point. Eastwood began to see Van Cleef not just as a co-star, but as a mentor figure. Van Cleef's tough exterior softened as he offered advice and insights on navigating Hollywood's unpredictable landscape. Eastwood has credited Van Cleef's guidance with helping him develop the grit and resilience needed for his own rise to stardom. But what truly cemented their friendship was their mutual commitment to their craft. Both men were perfectionists, demanding authenticity and intensity in every scene. They pushed each other to deliver performances that were raw and memorable, refusing to settle for anything less than excellence. This professional camaraderie transformed their working relationship from one of competition to collaboration. Eastwood also revealed surprising anecdotes about Van Cleef's generosity. Despite his tough image, Van Cleef often went out of his way to support younger actors on set, quietly offering encouragement and advice. Eastwood said that Van Cleef's support gave him confidence during moments when he doubted himself. Their friendship wasn't just confined to the set. Off camera, they shared moments of genuine connection, from casual dinners to conversations about life beyond acting. Eastwood described Van Cleef as a man of depth and complexity, whose humor and kindness rarely made headlines but were deeply felt by those close to him. What makes this revelation even more compelling is how it contrasts with earlier rumors painting their relationship as purely antagonistic. Eastwood's openness provides a fuller picture, showing that even in Hollywood's competitive world, friendships can emerge from unexpected places. And yet, even with this newfound friendship, the story takes another surprising twist. There's a secret about their final collaboration that Eastwood has kept under wraps until now. It's a revelation that adds a bittersweet note to their legacy. It will leave fans stunned. The story of Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef's last film together is more than just another chapter in their careers. It's a tale filled with unexpected drama and hidden layers. Eastwood's recent revelation shed light on a behind-the-scenes secret that fans never knew, one that changed the dynamic between these two iconic actors forever. Eastwood admits that during the filming of their final project, tensions ran higher than anyone expected. What many thought was a smooth partnership was, in reality, fraught with unspoken conflicts and professional frustrations. The pressure to outshine each other wasn't just from themselves, but from the intense spotlight of the audience and critics who hung on their every move. According to Eastwood, a major source of strain was creative differences with the director. Van Cleef wanted to approach his character with a certain depth and complexity that clashed with the director's vision, while Eastwood was trying to balance loyalty to Van Cleef with his own rising star power. This created an uneasy triangle of competing priorities on set, one that was difficult to navigate. But the real shocker came when Eastwood revealed that Van Cleef was battling serious health issues during the shoot, something that wasn't publicly known at the time. Van Cleef kept it hidden from most of the cast and crew, determined to maintain his tough guy image and not show any vulnerability. Yet, those close to him noticed subtle signs of fatigue and pain that no one fully understood. Eastwood explained how witnessing Van Cleef's quiet struggle added a new layer of respect and empathy. Despite the challenges, Van Cleef pushed through a professionalism that left a lasting impression. Eastwood said it was one of the most inspiring displays of dedication he had ever seen. This struggle, combined with the mounting creative tensions, created an atmosphere that was both challenging and poignant. Eastwood confessed that it made their final scenes together some of the most emotionally charged moments of his career. There was a rawness and authenticity that no one else could have captured, born out of real pain and unspoken understanding. Interestingly, Eastwood also shared that this experience forced him to reflect deeply on his own path. He realized that fame and success came with costs that were often invisible to the public eye. It made him appreciate the fragile nature of their profession and the importance of solidarity among actors. The last collaboration between Eastwood and Van Cleef became a bittersweet legacy, marked by artistic triumph but shadowed by personal hardship. Eastwood's words reveal a man who wasn't just a co-star, but a warrior facing battles far beyond the silver screen. And what happened after that final project would surprise everyone. Eastwood's silence for so many years wasn't just about rivalry or distance. It was tied to a promise he made to Van Cleef, a promise that shaped how he spoke about their relationship until now. After revealing the intense behind-the-scenes struggles and Van Cleef's hidden health battles, Clint Eastwood dropped what many would call the most unexpected piece of the puzzle, the promise that kept him from speaking openly about Lee Van Cleef for so many years. Eastwood explained that, after their final film wrapped, Van Cleef made him swear never to reveal certain details about their working relationship and Van Cleef's personal struggles. This wasn't just about protecting Van Cleef's image. It was about safeguarding his dignity. Van Cleef was known as the ultimate tough guy, and admitting vulnerability could have undermined everything he stood for in Hollywood. That promise weighed heavily on Eastwood. For decades, he kept quiet, honoring Van Cleef's wishes despite curiosity from fans, journalists, and even close friends. The silence wasn't born from rivalry or animosity, as some had speculated, but from respect and loyalty, something that surprised many who believed there was bad blood between the two. Eastwood admitted that it was a complicated silence. On one hand, he wanted to share the truth and honor Van Cleef's legacy fully. On the other, he understood the power of promises made in moments of trust. Breaking it would have felt like a betrayal. But what finally changed? Why break silence now after all these years? Eastwood shared that recent events and renewed interest in Van Cleef's career pushed him to reconsider. He felt the time was right to clear the air, to tell the story with honesty and compassion, without violating the spirit of his promise. Interestingly, Eastwood also touched on how keeping that secret shaped his own career. It added a layer of complexity to his memories and public persona, forcing him to compartmentalize experiences that could have helped explain some of his choices and attitudes in later projects. He reflected on how Hollywood often demands a perfect narrative from its stars, one without flaws or struggles, and how that can stifle authentic storytelling. His decision to finally speak out was as much about setting the record straight as it was about challenging that culture. This revelation also opened up a window into Eastwood's deeper feelings about Van Cleef, not just as a co-star, but as a man he admired and, despite the difficulties, cared about deeply. Eastwood's tone shifted here, revealing a side rarely seen in interviews, a mixture of regret, respect, and a bittersweet farewell. The promise that once kept him silent had, paradoxically, made his respect for Van Cleef grow stronger over time. Eastwood's candidness now invites fans to see their relationship through a more nuanced lens, one that acknowledges both the tensions and the profound bond forged in the toughest of circumstances. And as Eastwood's story wraps up, it leaves us with an important question. How much of Hollywood's untold truths remain locked behind promises and silence? What other stories could change how we see our favorite stars? As Clint Eastwood finally breaks his long-held silence on Lee Van Cleef, it's clear that their story is far more complicated than the typical Hollywood tale of rivalry or friendship. What emerges is a portrait of two men who shared incredible professional success, deep personal struggles, and a bond forged through hardship and unspoken promises. Eastwood's revelation shed new light on Van Cleef, not just as the iconic villain who terrorized the Old West on screen, but as a man grappling with his own demons behind the scenes. The health challenges, the moments of vulnerability, and the complex emotions that Eastwood describes add a human layer to the legend. For Eastwood, breaking the silence wasn't just about clearing rumors or telling untold stories. It was about honoring the truth and respecting the complicated nature of their relationship. He showed us that loyalty sometimes means keeping quiet, but that truth has a way of demanding to be heard, even decades later. This story invites us to reconsider how we view the legends of Hollywood. The polished images we see on screen rarely tell the full story. Behind every iconic role, there are personal sacrifices, struggles, and relationships that shape the careers we admire. Eastwood's decision to speak out now, after years of silence, reminds us that history is never static. Our understanding of people and events evolves as new truths come to light. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and question the narratives we've accepted. What does this mean for fans of Eastwood and Van Cleef? It's a call to appreciate the depth and complexity behind performances that captivated millions. It also serves as a reminder of the costs that come with fame and the courage it takes to reveal the untold stories. In the end, Clint Eastwood's revelations aren't just about settling old scores or revealing secrets. They're about empathy, respect, and the enduring power of friendship, even when it's complicated and imperfect. So, as we look back on the legendary careers of these two Western icons, we're left with richer, more human understanding of what they endured and what they meant to each other. Their story isn't just history. It's a powerful reminder of the hidden layers behind every face we see on screen. And maybe, just maybe, there are more stories like this, waiting patiently for the right moment to be told.